Hey everybody, I'm Bobby with We Do Boats. I'm here today with Gunther, and we're going to talk about how to remove the propeller from your We Do if you have a 2021 or newer style vessel.
Welcome to We Do Shop Talk. Here's Bobby.
Hey everybody, I am Bobby with We Do Boats. I'm here today with Gunther, and we're talking about the propellers on your We Do if you have a 2021 and newer style vessel. These propellers are mounted to a tapered shaft outdrive, and they're affixed with a castle nut. So Gunther's going to talk about what tools you'll need to remove this propeller if you have to service it for any reason.
The handful of tools that you guys are going to need to take your prop off are actually pretty simple. 2 lady slippers or a crowbar of a similar nature, and also a screwdriver flathead or at least a punch just to be able to get the cotter pin unbent so that way you can get the cotter pin out so we can actually put a 1-inch and an 1/8 inch socket on the castle nut to be able to remove it. So the first step to taking off our prop is we're going to actually get the cotter pin out of here. If you look on the inside of the prop housing, you're going to be able to actually see the cotter pin, and we're going to go ahead and try to unbend that out of the way. And once you got your cotter pin straightened out, you can just go ahead and use a pick or any other little tool to go ahead and just pull that little guy straight out. And then from there, we're going to grab our 1/2 inch impact gun with our 1 1/8 inch socket. Make sure you hold the prop because the prop will spin and it kind of hurts. Take your little castle nut out. This is where I got to get in you guys' way a little bit, but you're going to use your 2 crow's feet, put one underneath the prop, one on the top, on the side, and using equal pressure, just pull up and down, prop will come straight off, and it comes off like so. And once you guys have your guys' prop off, it's good etiquette to go ahead and just inspect your shaft seal here, your weedless shaft seal. Make sure there's no fishing line, debris, or anything else that's built up. Also, it's good to make sure your wood key is still there. And then if we want to go ahead and actually get into replacing your shaft seal for your actual outdrive while you're here, we're going to go ahead and get into that while it's on the bench. And
now this is what you see, is your shaft sticking out from the lower outdrive. And what we're going to do first is remove the woodruff key and set that aside in a safe spot, with your propeller and then your castle nut. The next step after that is going to be to disconnect the hydraulic outdrive lines, and then we're going to remove the cover, and then lastly the weedless adapter, and that will free everything up so the hydraulic motor can come right out from its lower housing there. There's some tips we're going to give you along the way to try to keep this as clean and neat as possible. Along with your seal kit that you got shipped to you by We Do, you're going to see these plastic covers. You've got caps and plugs, and what we're going to use these for is to A, try to reduce the amount of a mess we're going to make, and B, try to prevent any contaminants from entering your system. So we're going to show you a trick on how to engage the propulsion in either forward or reverse to stop the flow of fluid to one line at a time. So we're going to start by taking off the woodruff key, and then we're going to get into which line to do first and how to engage them. And obviously this is not with the engine running, battery off. Remember, it's always safety first. The first step is Gunther's going to show us how to go ahead and remove the woodruff key from the outdrive shaft.
You're only going to need 3 tools for that: a small chisel, a punch, and a hammer. First thing you're going to start with is staring at your outdrive. You're going to go ahead and take your wedge right at the tip of the woodruff key. Sometimes with the assistance of some pliers. There you go.
Now the woodruff key is out, we're going to set that someplace nice and safe. The next step, we are going to show you which hydraulic hoses to remove in which order and how to keep the amount of fluid from flowing out of there to a minimal. Regardless of which outdrive you're going to be servicing, you can reduce the amount of fluid wasted by engaging the drive in either forward or reverse depending on which hose you're moving first. So what we're going to do is engage the drive in forward, and we're going to remove the hose from the right side of the drive. We'll do that with a 7/8 wrench, and then once we take it off, we're going to take the cap and plugs that we talked about earlier and install them, then bring the drive into reverse, and then do that same process on the left side hose. So we're going to go ahead and walk through that now.
With your boat off and everything turned off, including your power switch, and your drive cable is now in the forward position, we're going to go ahead and take off the starboard side, your right side hose, if you're standing on the port side of the boat. There should be minimal fluid. You will still get a little bit, but it's not going to be a lot. Put your hydraulic caps on like so, so that way you don't make a mess, and that way it keeps everything from getting contaminated from any dust or metal. Then we're going to move the drive cables to the reverse position and take off the other side of the hose. So now with the drive cables in the reverse position, we're going to take off the port side hose. All right, so once you got the hoses disconnected, just go ahead and pull those out of your way. You're gonna need a 1/4-inch ratchet with a 1/8 Allen key, or just an 1/8 inch Allen key, Allen wrench, just to go ahead and get these small hex head style screws out. I'm just gonna loosen these up for now. Before we take all those out all the way, we're just going to go ahead and take off these swivel fittings using a 7/8 wrench. You're just going to take off the blue caps once you have these swivel fittings off, and you're going to put the blue caps in its place. That way you don't get any dust or debris while we are taking this cover off inside of the actual drive motor itself. Once you have those 90-degree swivel fittings out, you can go ahead and take out those 4 small bolts that we were working on with the 1/4-inch ratchet and take off your cover. So with the cover off now, we can use our 3/8 ratchet. Does not have to be electric, but it needs to have a 5/16 Allen bit or a 5/16 Allen key, and you need to remove these 4 bolts that are on your weedless adapter in order to get the outdrive out of the motor. So with those 4 bolts out, your weedless adapter will come right off. And with a little bit of persuasion, your outdrive will come right on out. It is slippery, so be careful. Don't drop your outdrive. I got it wedged in there. There we go, and that's your outdrive.
Now that we have our hydraulic motor removed from the lower outdrive, we're going to take it over to a bench and show you carefully how to remove the faceplate from it and how to get in there and replace the high pressure shaft seal. It's a pretty straightforward process, but there's some details to it, and we're going to cover all of those with you step by step. Now that we have our hydraulic propulsion motor removed from the outdrive and over here on our bench, we're going to show you how to remove this faceplate, and then that faceplate is what contains the high pressure shaft seal. Now, you don't need a lot of fancy tools for this, but there are some pretty specific things you need, and the most important thing you will need to remove the bolts from this faceplate is it's called an E-torque socket, and this is the number 10. So it's an E10 socket, and we'll show you a detailed view of that later. You'll make sure you got to have this before you even start this process. So we're going to go ahead and take that, put it on our ratchet, and there's 4 bolts on the top of this faceplate. We're going to remove those 4 bolts. Now, as we take this last bolt out of here, you notice this whole time I'm kind of firmly putting pressure on this faceplate. This is the most important part of this, and I can't emphasize enough how important it is, guys. Before you remove this faceplate, well, you got to get that last little bolt out of there. There we go. Now, listen, super, super important. You've noticed me putting pressure on this faceplate. Before we remove it, take your thumbs, apply pressure to that shaft, and lift the faceplate up from underneath. Do not try to remove the faceplate without keeping pressure on this shaft. If you do, the shaft will come out of its location, it will no longer be clocked, and that'll be a whole host of different issues. So pressure on the shaft, and the faceplate pops right off. Now, we're going to set the motor off to the side, and then on the outside of this faceplate, you've got your dust seal. On the inside, you have this ring. We're going to remove this ring. We're going to remove this O-ring, and then underneath there is your high pressure shaft seal. We're going to remove this one. We're going to clean this assembly up, and then we're going to reassemble. Now that we have the faceplate removed from the hydraulic propulsion motor, I've got it flipped with the inside facing me, and I can see this metal bushing here. You also see in front of me is a pair of wood 4x4s, and I've got them spaced apart just wider than this bushing. What I'm going to do is flip it back over with the faceplate on those blocks and take a lightweight dead blow hammer and just gently tap on this faceplate a few times. And that bushing came right out. So we're going to set that off to the side. There's a small gasket in here. We're going to pull it off to the side. And now what we're looking at is our high pressure shaft seal. Now this is the next step we're going to take out. We're going to show you how to remove this one and how to remove your dust seal. Then we're going to clean this with some cleaning agents, and we're going to reinstall the new seals. So in order to do this, we're going to go ahead and use the same methodology. We're going to take this faceplate, and I like to put it face up on the block of wood here, and take a flathead screwdriver, find the edge of where the rubber seal meets the flat lip of this faceplate, wedge it in there, and then a few taps with this rubber mallet, and it should come out. There you go. There's our failed high pressure shaft seal. Off to the side there, we want to make sure we put it out of the way so we don't confuse it. As a matter of fact, I didn't even take the new ones out of the bag yet. And you'll likely be able to see the damage that was either done to it from, overuse or maybe from removing it. Now we're going to do the same with this dust seal, which is on the outside of it. Sometimes a different approach is required. If the flathead screwdriver wasn't working for you, I have an assortment of picks over here. So you can try to take a pick and wedge it in between the metal face and the rubber seal, making sure you don't stick yourself in the finger, and try to use this tool instead. There's your dust seal. So now we're going to clean this faceplate with some cleaning agent and insert the new seals into it, and we'll show you that next. Our faceplate has been cleaned. If you have a parts washer, that would work well. If you don't, you can use a degreasing agent of your preference, as long as it's not going to be detrimental to the metal or the paint finish on the outside. Before we install the new seal, you want to take a good look inside all these grooves, make sure you don't have any rigid edges, make sure it's all clean and ready to receive the new seal. Once you've made sure of that, set it down on a flat surface, take your high pressure shaft seal. Now you got 2 seals in the kit. You can see clearly one is different than the other. A, it's a little bit bigger, and B, has a gray ring around it. That is your high pressure shaft seal. This is your dust seal. So we're going to set the dust seal off to the side. We're going to take the high pressure shaft seal with the flat face and go down away from you inside of the face plate. Set it in there, make sure it's flat. It goes down inside the lowest groove. And then if you have a press and you want to use the press to press it in there, that would work fine. We are going to be using today a 1-inch deep socket and again, our dead blow mallet. Now, remember, make sure it's nice and flat in there. I take the socket, set it on it, and take my mallet and give it a couple taps. Make sure it's going in straight. It's going in nicely, but it's not quite flush yet, so I'll give it another tap. We're going to look at it. Feel it with your finger. It should be flat against the next ridge up, and you can invert it and look at it from the face and make sure there's no gap around the entire ring. And that is now firmly pressed into place. Go ahead and set this off to the side. We can take this ring, this gasket O-ring, we just clean it with a rag. We're not replacing this one. You didn't get a new one, so make sure you use the one you had. Gently install it in the seat where it belongs. You'll see it fits naturally in there. It's nice and flat. Then we're going to grab the metal bushing. It'll slip right into place. And we're going to turn this over, now face up, facing us, and we're going to grab our dust seal. And again, the flat face is going to go down. We're going to set that in there. Go back to our socket. There you go. Now that we've reassembled our faceplate, just give it a once over. Make sure this flat face is clean. There's no debris. There's nothing on there. Your dust seal is where it belongs. The metal bushing is firmly in place where it belongs. It's flat. We're going to bring our motor back in front of us. Remember, be careful with this shaft. And we're just going to gently place the faceplate over the shaft. I'm going to put pressure on the shaft again and seat that faceplate down. Go ahead and bring it over to you. Take a good look. Line up the holes for your screws. I also cleaned the screws. You should do the same. We'll put those back into place. There's 4 of them. And again, we will be using our E10 Torx socket to install these. Don't over tighten one at a time. I mean, firmly distribute pressure, so work your way around before you start really tightening them. These are now all tight, and this hydraulic propulsion motor now had the seal replaced, and it is ready to be put back into the lower outdrive.
So now that we have our prepared and ready to go outdrive, we're going to go ahead and put our outdrive motor inside of our lower. Cradle that in there as nice as you can. You're going to get your weedless adapter. You're going to get the diamond going on vertical, going to go up. Always going to go at the top. You're going to get your 4 bolts. Going to get those started. It does help sometimes to just use the bit off your tool. Once you got your 4 bolts in, going to go ahead and grab your power tool or your ratchet, whichever you have and whichever you have going to use. You're gonna tighten them all up. I like to use an X pattern to make sure it's equal pressure. Just gonna work it back and forth. Make sure your bolts are tight. All right. Next thing we're going to do is we are going to install the Woodruff key. And all you need for this is just your standard 3/16 punch. The Woodruff key, you're going to put the flat side, the non-curved side towards the back, facing the weedless adapter. Curved side is going to be coming out towards you guys. Once it's down set in there, with your outdrive weedless adapter and your bolts fully fastened now, and your Woodruff key is now installed, we're going to go ahead and install our hoses. But before we do that, we're going to put our cover back on. And sometimes they just are a little sticky. Going to need your 1/4" ratchet again. And those 4 little bolts that we took out earlier, using that 1/8" Allen key. Once you have all 4 in, you can go ahead and start tightening them all down. You just don't want to tighten them one at a time, because then you'll have no movement for any flexibility. Now with your cover fastened, we're going to go ahead and put our 90-degree swivel elbows back on. Make sure you get these started by hand. Don't just start wrenching on them, because you don't want to strip your fittings, because that's not a good situation. Get your wrenches. Take those caps back off. I know it seems repetitive, but it's a good habit. Make sure you start on the side that you put the cable in. So we are in the reverse position from where we left off. And so we are starting with the left side hose. Give it just a couple little turns, just to prevent any excessive leaking. So once that's kind of snuggish, I'm just going to tighten the elbow first. It's important. Once you got that snug, just give it a nice little 1/4 turn. And use your 13/16 to hold the hose in the position so it doesn't rotate on it, because you don't want it to bend or flex. And once you've got that snug, go ahead and give that a 1/4 turn. And once we finish tightening the port side hose, we're going to go ahead and go back up to the drive valves at the front of the engine. And we're going to put them in the forward position, so that way the fluid does not come out on the starboard side. Grab my chair and sit on this side now. And take your caps off. There should be more minimal fluid here. Just be kind of quick. Connect those guys by hand. Go ahead and give that a couple turns. And then go back to the elbow. Tighten the elbow first, remember that. And then back up to the hose. Remember, hold that hose with the 13/16 so that way it does not flex or rotate or twist. So now that we got our hoses installed, we can go ahead and put our prop on now. So you want to look at the back of your prop, find that keyway opening. You want to look at your wood key, and you want to make sure you line that up. And slide right on there. You want to use a block of wood and a mallet or a hammer. I recommend you use a block of wood that sits in between your fins. You don't want to bend your fins on your prop, otherwise you're not going to be able to go very far with it. Go ahead and give it a good couple taps. Make sure it's seated. Then you can go ahead and put your castle nut back on there. Make sure you start it by hand. Don't just start running it with an impact gun. If you strip these threads, you're in a lot of trouble. You're gonna go ahead and use that 1/2" impact gun with a 1" and 1/8" socket. Gonna go ahead and hold that prop. Also look inside that hole. So you wanna make sure you line up that hole with on the prop. Make sure you can see the outdrive hole on the shaft. And also you wanna line up that castle nut with that hole on the shaft of the actual outdrive motor. So we're gonna go ahead and tighten that up. Hold the prop so you don't hit yourself. So now that the hole is visible, you're gonna grab your cotter pin, your little hammer, just to tap it in there sometimes. Sometimes you gotta use your punch just to get in down there a little deeper. Remember, you don't want to crush your cotter pin. You just want to make sure it gets down in there safely. Then you want to spread the pin almost like a butterfly. Spread one leg the other way and then one going the other. I like to use my hammer and my flathead just to kind of get it started to lock the cotter pin into position. Cool. And once the cotter pin is bent into position, your prop has been installed.